let's say, 10-year-old language that it was designed for children so that we can educate the next generation to know better. And then this Did You Know PDF will be brought into context of how it relates to you tonight. So, how many? Oh, you have 6 on tonight. Okay. So, many of you know that the landscape looks pretty rotten. You're hearing stuff about the straw man, and there's this historic institution called the American Federations of States. It was originally conceived by our founding fathers back in 1775. It was formalized in 1776 and ran America up till 1781. But it ran America in the international jurisdiction and representation of the original 13 colonies who became independent states. As independent states, they are actually recognized as nations unto themselves. So Maine is a nation, Florida is a nation, Virginia is one as well. Well, over the course of time, up until what is commonly referred to as the Civil War, there were 32, 34 of these nation states in the landscape. Well, something happened back in the day of Abe Lincoln. America didn't represent the best interests and wishes of the monarchs of Europe. So a big plan was hatched to take us down. Well, the planners and schemers got caught. This is why Washington, D.C. is pretty much empty these days. What you're going to learn is that in the day of Abraham Lincoln, a foreign chartered sound-alike corporation was smuggled into America. This corporation was called the United States of America, Inc., and it was chartered out of Edinburgh, Scotland. So this corporation was smuggled in here to do a sidestepping of contractual obligations, to bypass the Declaration of Independence, to steal and rob us blind any way they could by hook and crook. And you almost lost this place. You almost lost the Declaration of Independence. What you're going to find out is we have been managed by foreign contractors who created a corporate structure unto themselves out of Washington, D.C., under the corporate structure of the Act of 1871. It didn't go so well, so in 1874 they revoked everything, tweaked all their new notes, reformed it, and brought it out into the light of day from 1878. And it's this reformed corporate structure that the 14th Amendment came out of. All it is a corporate functional adjustment. Just like if Burger King said, we're going to make some adjustments and we're no longer going to sell fries. And we're going to make it part of our internal company corporate structure. It's not the American 14th Amendment. So over time, we have discovered this massive fraud. the changing of vocabulary and definitions by this group. America actually functions under the American common law, known as the public law. Capital P public, capital L law. But in order to function under that law, you actually have to be a recognized American. The only problem is the vast majority of souls walking the streets of America are not recognized in international law as being American. By most accounts, as of about 2 weeks ago, roughly 35 million souls have reclaimed themselves in one form or other fashion. So some 310 million foreigners are on American soil. Are you one of them? And that's what we're here tonight to address. Now, in this structured document, you're going to learn about 3 separate institutional constitutions. Constitutions are power-sharing contracts. Most people do not know that they've been taken off the American contract and made a foreigner living on American soil, providing goods and services to the American people, if you can find one. Let that sink in for a moment. If you can find an American. Some of you will be going, well, that sounds a little wonky. Well, you have been kidnapped off the international record, declared a foreign citizen living on American soil. Your American birthright has been mothballed in a trust. And you were never informed. And all of this got started in high gear in 1921. And how did they accomplish this? They took control of our education system. They took control of our language. They took control of the hospitals. They took control of the medical profession. We were told growing up, and by the way, I'm 67. I was born in 1957. I graduated from high school like anybody else in 1975. In 1976, one Jimmy Carter took American history out of the school system. So pretty much anybody under the age of 64 doesn't know what they don't know. They just have a sense that something's wrong. I'm here tonight to help fill in some of the missing voids so you can comprehend the outhouse landscape around you. So how does this relate to you? Good question. There's little y, little o, little u. There's capital Y, little o, little u. And there's capital Y, capital O, capital U, U. And if you've not been properly taught this stuff in school, thank the edumacation system for making you edumacated. The greatest prison conceived by the mind of man is the mind of man, because if you cannot perceive the bars of your captivity, you cannot see the chains of your enslavement. And yes, all of America was enslaved. So, how did they manage this little thing? They did it with your birth certificate. Your birth certificate is not properly explained to anybody, and it's by design. When they took American history out of the school system, they started removing cursive script writing. And the reason for that, if you dismiss it as an archaic item, then you can't read the archaic documents that apply to you if you think you're an American, such as the Declaration of Independence. So it sits as an old musky rag. Seldom seen, seldom utilized, and it's all by design. So your American birthright was mothballed in a trust by way of your birth certificate. And they removed you out from underneath the American Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Guarantees that everyone thinks of as the Bill of Rights. They removed you from the Declaration of Independence so it doesn't apply to you. My question to you, how do you feel about that? Kind of a thought-provoking situation. Let's go back to Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln's family was a Tory family during the time of the Colonial Revolution. They were royal suck-ups to the King of England. And when we won the Colonial War, they lost big time. It turns out the king financed the Tories to wage war against us. And when we won, they lost, and the king said, I'm going to get repaid one way or another. So the King of England reached out to the Americans and said, would you act as my collecting agent for the debt that they owe me, my loyal servants? So in order to speed up their repayment program, they hatched a plan to get a little aid. So they hatched a plan to subjugate everyone they could by hook or crook and steal everything blind. In the 1830s, Abe Lincoln stood before 3 admiralty judges and gave a fealty oath and became a bar attorney, a British accredited registry office title one step below a royal knight, mounted on the Edwardian tables of nobility. So at the top is the king, then the queen, duke, earl, baron, baroness, and you get down to royal knight. The next step underneath is esquire. That's what the attorneys are, esquires. They're foreign agents recognized as the King of England's civilian militia under letters of marque to steal us blind, to bring everything possible back into the control of the King of England. So, that building sitting in Washington, D.C. with this guy sitting in this big chair, and he's got his hands on the ends of the arms, sitting there all kind of stoic. What if I told you you've never been properly informed what that structure is. It's a worship temple. Yes, it's a monument, but it's actually a worship temple to the first installed American Roman Caesar. Hail Caesar! And he imported Roman Empire law, known as civil law, into America. And the word law means land, air, and water. They are 3 jurisdictions. So my question to you is, where are you in that mix? What jurisdiction do you think you're in? Most likely you're standing in the wrong jurisdiction thinking you're an American, but in the international records, you're listed as a pauper servant subject owned by the crown as a subject citizen and a slave under the Vatican law, known as municipal law. And yes, the municipal law is a separate beastie, and it gets its roots under ecclesiastical law. So this corporate entity has been around everybody's periphery all of our lives, and we think of this as normal. What if I told you you're owed something entirely different, and that's where that structure document comes in? Please download it. You're authorized to reprint it. Spread the word far and wide. America's being restructured. So the first constitution created by the people is the Constitution for the United States of America, unincorporated. Every sovereign government around is unincorporated and always has been. Well, we rattled the trees around the world, and everyone's catching on that they've been substituted for corporate structure. This is where the elitist Kabbalists have been running into a brick wall, because the people in general are waking up to how grand this fraud is, how they've been ensnared, how they've been suckered. So this Constitution for the United States of America is what you are owed coverage under if you're an American. Now, this corporate structure that was smuggled in here, this is how they managed to pull this off on us. They smuggled it into Delaware, filed its paperwork, smuggled it into D.C., and then put Lincoln on a train without informing anybody that this was an incorporated structure. All incorporated entities around the world come under the auspices of the Roman Curie. And the Pope was final overseer of everything. Well, the last Pope before this character took the actual ecclesiastical office of the Pope to the grave with him. He did not allow or transfer the office to anybody. What was left and remaining was the pontiff in the worldly offices. Well, those worldly offices are corporate. Incorporated. So it doesn't matter whether you're Ford Motors, BMW in Germany, Toyota Corporation in Japan. The Pope had absolute oversight under ecclesiastic law to rein in the entire operation. Well, over the ages, commercial law was created to set a standard of internationally fair-minded rules for the commercial realm to function with. So you've probably heard about the Universal Commercial Code. Well, the Universal Commercial Code is overseen under patent, trademark, by another entity of the Vatican called Unidroit. Well, I'm here to tell you that the Vatican operation and the Roman Catholic Church are filing for bankruptcy. Absolute liquidation, non-existence. And everything municipal around the world is being restructured. If you look in your local area, you'll see the municipality operations. They were liquidated. Chapter 7, international liquidation, gone. And there's no allowance for a assumption of contract because America has grown up and we can become our own service providers. We just have to wake the people up, get them to realize they've been lied to, see how they've been lied to, and then be willing and able to take corrective action. So, one of our contractors is trying to step into the void and pick up the slack. And that is the British territorial operation that was granted a contractual constitution in 1789. And they were granted a contractual performance for 19 stipulated services. And our American Constitution was in 1787. The third constitution for the Vatican operation, known as the municipal contract, was 1791. Well, that constitution performance has been revoked. So this is why you're seeing Humpty Dumpty falling off the wall. And Humpty Dumpty is not going to be rebuilt. Many of you have heard the saying, it's going to be biblical. You literally are going through the days of the edge of the apocalypse. You have been going through the era of the buying and selling of souls. The buying and selling of your birthright. So let me explain your birth certificate to you. Unbeknownst to your mother, who was in pain, probably medicated, was shoved a pile of paperwork by this character as an intern, a doctor, someone from the hospital. Here, sign. And being uninformed, Mom scrolled her Hancock on it. And right then and there, your American birthright was captured and mothballed. So for about 3 weeks, you existed as a bouncing baby. And if you pull out your birth certificate, you'll see a birthday and a registration event. On the day of the registration event, they did multiple things to you, all of which was a crime of one sort or another against you while you're barely in your cradle. First of all, they killed you on paper. They probated your estate, mothballed it into a trust called a usufruct, separating you from your birthright and your heritage, pledged you as collateral, and then the Vatican came in and bought you, literally bought you by your birth weight in gold, making you a vassal property of the Vatican and a subject slave, defined in law. So have you ever really noticed how your mail comes sometimes in all caps and then in other times it comes in upper lowercase? These are two kinds of personages practice against you. And so what if I told the mail is not coming to you, but to the authorized representative of each entity? So William Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. So in this stage of life, what role do you play on stage? What if I told you you've been performing multiple roles simultaneously and you've been doing it free all of your life? As an unpaid volunteer. Yes, unpaid. Your entire life. So what kind of volunteer work have you been doing? Well, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, chief cook, bottle washer, husband, wife, bailor, bailee, trustee, trustor, authorized representative, private banker, and a few others that I could add to it, but you get the gist. Your language coming through public school puts you into the cattle chute of doing all this as a subject slave voluntarily. How do you feel about that? To realize you've been conned, hoodwinked, flim-flammed, hornswoggled, ripped off, and lied to. So the American government has stepped out of the shadows to help correct the operation. It's been an ongoing 20-year project, and you're about to witness the culmination of a lot of effort. Shortly, the company known as United States Inc. is going to be taken down forever. And the American government is going to rise back out of the ashes And in doing so, you're going to find out in every state there is a state-level assembly. The assembly is the government of the people, for the people, by the people. But are you one of the people? Because what they have done to each and every one of us with the birth certificate, you actually have to raise your hand, object, and do something truly novel. You have to rebut what has been done to you. But if you have never been told any of this stuff to you, how are you going to know to object? We've had masqueraders attempt to claim that they represent us. And they've been coming out of the woodwork, especially of late, trying to lodge objections. Well, this body called the American Federation of States functions in international jurisdiction. So they've been fending off the likes of the United Nations, the WEF, our two foreign contractors, and a host of others who've attempted to lay claim that they represent us, that they are the actual government. Well, you're also about to learn about the American Federation dollar. It was proclaimed April 5th of this year, and it's a gold-based dollar. The Federal Reserve went bankrupt in 2008 and were invited back to the negotiation table, and they refused. As a result of it, the Federal Reserve is going down in flames. So be wary-eyed of major banks who have bought trademarked logos and are hiding behind it, like the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System or the Federal Reserve Bank. The entire system was built around 63 international reserve banks. And everything now has been rolled up to the New York Fed, and it's about to go down as well. So there's been a global recoupment of American assets by the Federation. Gold, silver, land titles, gold bonds. As an American, you are incredibly wealthy. But as an indentured foreign citizen living on American soil, you are a pissant peon, poor and broke. This is why you are taxed through the nose and taxed out the backside as well. We as Americans are not subject to the King of England. Our founding fathers made sure of that. We're not subject to primogeniture, which is a king. And we're not subject to entailments, which would be the dukes, the earls, and the barons. So in order to get around this condition, they brought in a corporation. And then that corporation made subsidiaries. And then those corporations made many subsidiaries. So when they put Lincoln on a train and ran him around the country, and our ancestors voted for him, they made the self-confessed admission that they were British subjects voting into a Commonwealth Crown Corporation because it's unlawful and illegal for Americans to do such. That's how the democracy was populated. The true America is a Republican form of government. And if you haven't thoroughly wrapped your mind around the concept, please do so. That Republican government is the government of the people. So this corporate structure that was brought here by Lincoln required the rewriting of every state performance operation known as the state constitution. So your state of state, and when you include the word of, means apart from the original. So the state of state operation is apart from the American operation. Now I'm going to pick on Virginia because it's a Commonwealth institution. It's also a land and soil institution. It's also a British territorial corporate institution. And then there is a municipal institution as well. So when you walk out the front door and you stand on the lawn, you're standing on Virginia, the land and soil jurisdiction. And when you look at the state capital right now, it's a corporate structure, and that's known as the state of Virginia. And that's capital S state, capital V Virginia, little o on of. And that is a British territorial corporate service contractor to you. And then there is Virginia State. And that is all the land and soil assets, titles, everything rolled up into a state trust that our employees have been managing, waiting for us to show back up. And then you're going to find out that there's an all capital letter version of the state of Virginia, and that's a municipal corporation service provider. So how did the municipal get its toehold on our soil? The very first thing that our Continental Congress did was extend a contractual offering to the Vatican for mail services under an institution known as the Universal Postal Union. This is where you get postal roads and that kind of language in the contracts, the original contracts. So when you see dockyards, postal roads, other needful buildings, you need to segregate them out of who's doing what. So our employees went rogue on us. They hatched a plan to get around their obligation to us, to convert us into helping hands to repay their obligations to the crown. That's why you pay income taxes as a U.S. citizen. The U.S. citizen is a foreign citizenship. It's not American. You get your natural God-given birthright from the state upon which you were born. Texas, California, Idaho, North Carolina. Your desirous goal is to reclaim your God-given birthright. So up in the Constitution room, I have posted something called a one-pager. And with that instrument, you're going to reclaim your natural heritage birthright. You'll read through the document. In about the second or third paragraph, there's spacing there for you to put the state upon which you were born on there. And then go take that instrument to the nearest notary and have them notarize it. You've done your first step in reclaiming you. But the you that you're reclaiming at that moment is the little Y-O-U. One of the things you've been subjected to are 3 rules of Roman maxim of law. Capital D minutia maximus, capital D minutia medius, and capital D minutia minimus. Any name in all caps is a corporate entity. That's what you see in the mail that comes. It's a corporate entity. Now, sometimes you see mail that comes in upper lowercase. Now you have to ask yourself, what kind of person is this? Because it could be a British territorial citizen. It could be name of a sailboat. The key is to ask what kind of person this is. And then lastly, the little Y-O-U-U is capitis de minutia minimus. Any name expressed in all little letters is the highest right of freedom and authority expressed in Roman law. But you're not properly taught how to finagle that status and how to use the little letters properly. Well, I'm here to clue you in. If you've got a pencil in front of you, make the little I. Don't forget that little dot. Now, I'll explain the power of that. That little dot represents the head of a living woman or the living man. And the moment you capitalize it, you decapitate the living man, make them a dead fictional entity, and the name is expressed as some kind of person. And if it's in all caps, the Sunny Bee, the Boeing Corporation, the Ford Corporation, or the Susie Marie as a sailboat. There's this old book. Some people pay attention to it. Others, not so much. And it says, "Come out of her, my people. Partake not of her plagues." That's what I'm helping you do. Coming out of Babylon, so when I say that you have lived your life in the era of the buying and selling of souls, your birth certificate was sold on Wall Street. Oh, and by the way, so is your baptismal certificates. The King of England and the Vatican, long time ago, had a business arrangement to share the 60-40 split of the selling of your baptismal certificate on a black market. The king got 40, the Vatican got 60. That's the buying and selling of your soul claim. So when they filled out your birth certificate, stamped your feet on the original documents, and in some cases took a little prick of your heel, think of Achilles. the Achilles heel. They have your DNA backed up in the Vatican archive. That's that baby weight purchase in gold for the Vatican to lay claim to you as a municipal subject, citizen, indentured servant, and slave. So you're wanting to come out from underneath the municipal constitution, and you're wanting to come out underneath the British territorial constitution. And this will sound very odd to many people. The Constitution of the United States is the British territorial business agreement to recognize you as an American from their standpoint. From their standpoint, you're supposed to have rights. But as a U.S. citizen, you have none. You're just a loyal subject citizen living on someone else's front lawn known as America. The other two documents I posted up in the Constitution room are known as witness testimonies. Download them, go get 2 passport pictures. And with the passport pictures on them, you go find 2 friends. They can be family members. And they go to the notary, and all they're saying is, see this picture? I know this picture. I know this picture by this name. I've known him for 7 years. And they put their John Hancock to it. And when you come forward, we need a scanned copy of your birth certificate, because waiting for you in this ginormous slush ball of a bankruptcy proceeding is your American heritage, birthright, everything. Your blood, sweat, tears, intellectual property, your patents, the title to your car, the title to your house, motorcycle, everything that you think is yours is in mothball status. Wouldn't you like to get it out from underneath the king and no longer have to pay taxes to it? Now, as an American, you have a rightful birthright to what's called a freehold. A freehold is joint ownership in this gin joint as American, not subject to anybody. And you're able to hold your land under patent. But you need to be able to pull it out of this King's Trust. And that's what real estate is. It's in the King's Trust because you're listed as a subject citizen of the king. Anybody that holds a license in the de facto system is operating as a foreign officer agent for the king. And real estate agents are such an officer. Attorneys are such an officer. Any occupation that requires you to have a license is in this condition. And a license is permission to do something that would otherwise be illegal as hell. However, you might have a lawful right to exercise a trade as a plumber, a carpenter, maybe even as a house builder. If you've got a pencil and a piece of paper handy, please print the word home on it. Now add the letters A, G, E. And you create homage with a home. So you're paying your taxes to the king, paying homage. In your title paperwork, you're going to find out you've been given a leasehold. And the reason you're able to leasehold is because you're not able to have a freehold, because you're not listed as an American in the paperwork. Wouldn't you like to be able to come out from on all of that stuff? Ever so simple. But you must master some of the vocabulary, because when they took control of the education systems in the early 1900s, they took control of the teaching institutions that taught the teachers, who became the professors, who taught the teachers, who taught the teachers, who are teaching today. And each subsequent generation's vocabulary has been constrained into this cattle chute of slavery. This entire institution functions under admissions and confessions of the very words that you choose to use. But if you don't know that words have different meanings, how do you know if you're using the right word in the right context? That's how convoluted this whole muffed up situation is. So, we as Americans are not the grantors of the original contract. Because of the stepping stone system that the founding fathers made, there were two institutions in the government stuff that was supposed to be in DC for us. Well, Abe Lincoln set those institutions aside, never informed anybody what he did, and then they just went in and said, well, until the Americans show back up and pick this back up, we'll just carry on for them. And that's what the Reconstruction Acts of the Civil War era were all about in actuality. Those have never been properly done. So the Confederation of States, which gave rise to the Federal Republic, were the two institutions that Lincoln set aside. The Federal Republic had the contract that controlled the mints to stamp coin and issue money. By bringing us under corporate control, they bankrupted the entire operation in 1907. So all of the original state of states, state of Kansas, state of Illinois, state of Mississippi, all went originally bankrupt in 1907. And so did every county charter back then. And then they fired up US Inc. and USA Inc. and plotted to bankrupt them, but at a quicker pace. What took them nearly 60 years to bankrupt the first time around, they bankrupted it in 21. And each bankruptcy cycle got shorter and shorter and shorter. So just about every 7 years, the entire shebang goes bankrupt now. and we've caught on to them, and we're not accepting their liability and not allowing the bankruptors to pawn off their debts on our backs anymore. This is why you need to reclaim you out of this big slush fund. There's a piece of ancient legislation called the Residence Act of 1790. It's what allowed their contractors to be on our soil to provide us services. Right now, across the country, there's numerous discussions about revoking this piece of ancient legislation. Because America has grown up with the ability and the diversification that we can run our own operation if someone would just give us a clue that this is the situation. So the 34 states of the Union that existed before the Civil War unanimously voted to accept the other 16 states that came in after Lincoln on an equal footing doctrine retroactive to the so-called date of their admission. So right now, all 50 states have been admitted into the American States of the Union, and that was effective October 1 of 2020. In all 50 states, land and soil jurisdiction governments are being rebuilt right now. Some of them are more advanced and further along than others. Do not expect a normal election cycle in November. There's going to be an attempt to perpetrate and misrepresent your birthright as an American state national to that of American citizenship. But citizenship will be utilized from the European viewpoint. As a Dutchman, as a Frenchman, your citizenship means you're obligated to the government. Our founding fathers never set that up here. The only purpose of a government is to protect the people and to protect their property and right. Nothing more. So what if 90% of all government structures that you have grown up and became used to disappeared in the blinking of an eye? Oh my gosh, what will I do? Who will I seek out? You will seek out the state assembly in your respective state. That is the government of the people, for the people, by the people, running your state of the union. And there are over 3,000 counties across the country, and they each get their own county level assembly. And that is the government of the people, for the people, by the people at the local level, having the highest authority in the land. Wouldn't you want to be a part of it? So, the Constitution of the United States is nothing more than hired help. It might be mowing the lawn. It might be the road crew down the street fixing potholes. But there were originally 19 delegated service contractors, service duty offers. In time, you'll learn what they were. Anyway, from our American perspective, all three of these service contracts, known as constitutions, had something in there called the 11th Amendment. It was for pass-through recognition, not to be subject to them. They went rogue on us. This is why we have, generally speaking, revoked we have taken them to the negotiation table and said, why would we hire you again just for you to do this to us again? So how about if you become your own best friend, step up, reclaim yourself, and then help provide yourself, your friends, your family with the government that you are owed. So, I'm going to take a break, open up for questions. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. This is Arjax. You said you mentioned the number of people that have already changed their status, and I missed that number. Could you give me that again?
A little over 32 million.
32 million. My goodness.
Yes. Now, there's been a traditional allowance of making some form of public declaration, either newspaper.
I have a question for you.
Just posting a notice on a billboard.
Thanks for doing this, by the way. Really appreciate
Pardon?
this.
And
to
who is
reclaim a
speaking?
birthright, do I have to file in the state that I was born in, or
No.
the state I've been living in my whole life?
Okay, so many of us do not live in the state in which we were born in. I myself am a birthright Californian. At the age of 6, my mother and father relocated to Washington. I've lived all my life up here. Now, when you get the one-pager and these 2 witness testimonies completed, and you bring with you your birth certificate, you will seek out your respective state's assembly upon which you are currently domiciled. Add that word to your vocabulary. Because a resident is a foreigner living on American soil. Residency is really bad. Once you go through this process, you will no longer be the character you've always thought of yourself in certain terms. Yes, you may have always thought of yourself as an American. And what I've brought to light tonight with some of you would be rather shocking to you. But when you know who you are and why you are and how you came to be as an American, the landscape around you will change slowly at first. You're going to have to take baby steps. And
If
think
Jim is
of
talking, I think he's muted.
hello.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes. GA, we can hear you.
I can't hear Jim. I don't know if he's muted or not. It looks like he's muted.
No, he's not muted.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I don't know. This happened last week where the system automatically just muted me. Okay, so
no, you're not muted right now. You're not muted.
No,
We can hear you.
Okay.
I brought up the other screen so I
had
can
a
see all
question
the
for him. I
mics.
was wondering if you had to go to the state that you were born in to file the forms, or
Nope, the
can you
state
file
upon
in the
which you're
state that
currently
you're living in?
standing. So may I ask where you're at?
GA, did you hear what Mike just asked you?
I think his volume is down.
Yeah,
No,
something. We can hear him, but he can't hear us.
Well,
I
the
can't
system
hear
is
Jim at all.
automatically choosing to mute. It's an automatic function that's happening to us. So, GA, may I ask where you're at, located?
It shows that his mic is red.
Appreciate.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
GA, where are you located at? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can.
I can too.
Okay. Okay, GA, where are you located? And right now, your mic is turned off. Well, wherever you folks are living at, you will seek out that state's assembly. And I did post up in the Constitution room how to find them. There is a contact page. Fill out the contact and someone from your respective assembly will reach out to you.
Okay, are there any websites or books that we can get that can help us with?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to type in a website in the Constitution room.
Okay.
Boy, the computer's we're being blocked tonight.
Attacked.
Yes,
Somebody-
I think attacked.
Somebody doesn't want us to hear this.
No, they don't. They don't want us to know this information.
Well,
And-
we know that Telegram is coming under scrutiny, and while I
Yeah.
don't think that this is a threat to what they've listed, I can see it having feeders and legs that would pull us into a a web that would put us under scrutiny, but we just have to press on.
Right. I'm going to have to step away for a minute. My dog is outside and barking like a banshee. I'll be right back, folks.
Okay.
Well, Rjax, I was going to ask him, and maybe you can tell me whether this is appropriate or not, but I wanted him to cover income tax. And
He covered that a little bit last week,
yeah, he started
but
to.
I'm sure he'll cover it again this week if you ask.
Yeah, I had read and I heard it last week's call, and he described it, but it's still fuzzy in my mind anyway, because we're not federal employees and we don't receive federal income. We're not necessarily required to file federal income tax. And I wanted his opinion about that. And a second question I had for him is, can he discuss Anna Maria Reisinger and her role in all of this? She seems to be a key player, and she's got a couple of books.
Yeah, and she used to be a part of this Seeds of Wisdom, actually. And then we just stopped covering her for some reason, and people weren't going to her room, and so we finally just closed it. But that was years ago.
Yeah.
And she has still been involved all of this time, and she's very, very instrumental in a lot of what's going on.
Well, I noticed that a lot of she's basically blocked from YouTube, and her videos and stuff are blocked. So I thought maybe Silver Jim might have something to say about that.
He has a website for her. He has her website, so he can give that to us.
Okay, thank you. He's back, so I'll let him go.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. So the AmericanStateAssembly.net is an educational site. We have all kinds of material that we can back everything up on. And when it's referenced to the books, one of the main ones is a book titled You Know Something Wrong When, and it's the American Affidavit of Probable Cause that was presented to all of the primary principles for all the wrongs and the egregious performance. It is, it's written in about a 12-year-old mindset, about 270 pages big. It's paperback. It's an easy, comfortable read. So if you've got sons and daughters who are about 10 years old, it's written in a form that they could comprehend. That way we can teach the younger generation so that we can train them up. As they come forward, they have a better knowledge and proper mindset.
How is the Hillsdale College constitutional training classes? Is that good, or?
Now, the mindset that needs to be truly referenced in the constitutions these are what our employees are supposed to recognize. We have rights. From our perspective, they gave us the guarantee that they would respect our rights. We have guarantees from our employees but many of them don't see themselves as being nothing more than employees.
unfortunately, they don't feel that way these days. They think that they're our owners, which I guess through the corporation they are.
Actually, part of the problem is one of the hats that you have been wearing is you're a stockholder in the company. And as a participant in the company, you're subject to the company. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of the birth certificate. In this instance, your birthright being rolled up into this conditional trust called a usufruct. They have not provided proper usufructory duty to us to hold us harmless to whatever they have done with the contents of what they created. There's an old maximum law. He who creates a thing controls the thing. They created the trust. You donated to the trust. Well, once what they have done to you has been explained to you, wouldn't you like to be able to cancel your donation? That's one of the things that we do. Cancel your role as donor. Now, with the recent announcement of the bankruptcies of the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church, many of the institutions that came under their auspices, such as the Uniform Commercial Code. The Uniform Commercial Code is going to take a black eye. Unidroit, the corporation that held control of the Uniform Commercial Code. That's an institution I'm watching carefully to see how it glides through all this turmoil.
How do you spell that? You know what?
Unidroit. N or UNIDROIT.
Oh, I got it right. Okay.
Okay. So
All
if you
right.
do some research on the Uniform Commercial Code, you'll find out that the code is owned by and controlled under patent. And it's by our mutual consent of participation in this with non-disclosure. That is the inherent problem we face. You don't know what you don't know because they didn't feel fit to inform you. Now, when you look in the county seat and all those poor characters up there in the building, knowing that they are your service employees, they don't have access to the Declaration of Independence. Many of them don't know the actual nature of their status as a foreigner working in the role of county council, county sheriff. The county sheriff is nothing more than hired help. In reality, he's a Pinkerton, an armed, badged, doorbell rattling Pinkerton. And across America, many people are asking the question, what's wrong? They see everything out of whack. And I have a question for you. What is the difference between the Crips, the Bloods, MS-13, and your local county sheriff's department? Because many of them aren't much different from the others.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's an old saying, the reason the government doesn't like competition is because they're into it for the money. That's why they come down on so many people trying to correct them. So we have been surrounded by hired jurists who work in foreign capacities, owing allegiance to a king of England. Now, your county prosecutor, being a bar member, is a foreign agent giving all the offices in the county building legal advice from the standpoint of service providers from the king. And they're stuffing it down everyone's throat. Well, about a week ago, I shared a little tidbit of legislation on a countrywide call. And this little piece of legislation is in the Code of Federal Regulations, 49 CFR 390.3. And Anna wrote an article. It's titled Big Hats Off and a Little Addition. So under the Code of Federal Regulation 49390.3, it concerns the vehicle, the motor vehicle, and the automobile. Do not be confused that the automobile is not necessarily a vehicle. Because in special definitions, it comes down to use and function. Hey, RJ.
Yeah.
We're going to role play.
Okay.
Hey, sweetheart, want to go to the store?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. We need a loaf of bread, probably a couple of steaks, pound of butter. And so in asking you if you want to go to the store, did I offer to hire you, dear?
No.
Did you have RJ's grocery delivery service sign shingled on the side of your car?
Absolutely not.
Do you have a shingle on there saying Uber or Lyft?
No.
Well, are you licensed for a box delivery truck of like 26 feet
No.
long? Okay, do you have a Class A CDL for a 60-foot semi-truck?
Absolutely not.
How about hazmat endorsement for gasoline or diesel fuel?
No.
Well then, my dear, you're not a driver.
But I have a driver's license.
Well, that means that you have the opportunity to engage across the road for profit for hire.
Oh, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Didn't know that.
That's the purpose of a driver's license. Now, the operator of such a rig is the commercial entity that holds the title to the car, truck entity. and it has obligations under the National Transportation Highway Safety Act. Because it's engaged in for profit across the road, it must be licensed and insured. And it has to have these little numbers on the side of the doors, DOT numbers, scale weight limitations. The commercial shingle says RJ's Grocery Service or something along that line. Now, because many of us, I used to hold a driver's license, and I was good to 80,000 pounds of semi-truck. Once I learned about the federal overtones and control, I got rid of the federal side of the endorsement. So I chose to stay within the borders of Washington. This is where I live. And then when my circumstance changed, I dropped the semi-truck endorsement and got away from the control of the State Patrol commercial enforcement code folks. These are these trucks and cars that you see the guy, he pulls over a semi-truck, he pulls out this hand-carried portable scale, puts it underneath the back tire and tells the operator of the rig to back up over it. I got away from that part of the enforcement. Then I found out the private side of the franchise. And I got rid of my driver's license because it's part of the corporate structure. Now, under this CFR 390 protocol, Anna wrote an article. The title of the article is Big Hats Off and a Little Addition. And she used Oregon because it was a properly conformed state pre-Civil War. About the Oregonian right to travel on the public roadways as a matter of right that is not licensable, not commercial, not professional, and not an occupational event. And it's protected under the Constitution of Oregon, Article 1, Section 14, right to freely travel. And under the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 2, privileges and immunities clauses. By removing American history out of the school system, in many places up here in the Pacific Northwest, they also removed Pacific Northwest history. And if you don't know who, what, where, and how can you gripe and complain? Now, most of the states across the country have this sort of item embedded in their own makeup. You'll have to do some research because each state's general law setup is accepted in general conformity with other states pretty much along the way. I'll recognize you if you recognize me, and therefore we're happy and we can sing Kumbaya as states. But many states have had law cases. In the case of Oregon, is State versus Goit, known as 272 Oregon 1, and this case was in 1975. And it was a fundamental right of traveling case. And in State versus Rogers 41 Oregon Appeals Court 891, which was in 1979, right to travel without a license. Think about that.
It's against the law most of the places.
What is against the law?
Traveling in a vehicle, driving a vehicle without a license.
Well, what if you're not for hire?
Well, I'm not for hire, that's for sure. But if I get pulled over and I don't have a driver's license, that's against the law, isn't it?
No.
Well,
I think in Virginia it is.
I think you have to say you're a traveler.
Yeah, and
You're
so
traveling.
This is one of the issues that we are addressing across the country in several of the states right now. The Federation is taking our service employers' status back at the employees and letting them know they haven't been performing properly. Now, about a century ago, there was a court case called Norton versus Shelby County, and it was the major court case dealing with agencies. Agencies do or do not have authority to do this, that, or whatever. And then a few years back, there was West Virginia versus EBA, which again reaffirmed if it's not one of these 19 delegated services appointed under the original contract, hands off. Well, with the recent Chevron deference case, these agencies that were created during the time of FDR are getting their teeth kicked in. We found out that we were represented by both the British territorial and the municipal operation running side by side in parallel and double taxed. Every last one of us was double dipped. Well, this Chevron deference case pretty much put the nail in these agencies. The agencies are hired help of the hired help. And sometimes the hired help of the hired help of the hired help, creating an arm's length, plausible deniability that someone's not in control. It's their obligation and their duty to perform, not mine. That's being eliminated. Across the country, there's a great cleanup about to unfold.
What's going to happen to all those people that don't have a job after that?
Well, let me put this in a different. Now, I gotta phrase this for a little bit.
Yes, that's right.
Here in Washington, I wear multiple hats. One of the hats that I wear is that of a recording secretary. As such, I function on the capacity in international jurisdiction to help people correct their status and standing. Here on Washington, we have 20 plus of us. Some states have more than others, and it just depends on how far along down the path your respective state is. When you go into this American Federation of States, poke around. And there's going to be a contact page for the 50 states assemblies. When you touch it, a map will drop down. Touch your respective state upon which you are standing on, and a drop-down menu will open up, and fill it out and say, hey, I want to do my paperwork. I'm coming home. That sounds really good, coming home.
Yep.
If I
Okay.
might, can I make a suggestion that we've got 12 listeners on, and that's a really good number. I suggest that if and ask or request that you put up the link to download for the listeners the paper that I printed out, and I think you shared it with me. It's called Explicity Without Prejudice, and it is about 150 or 60 page book, but it goes into great detail about who we are and how we volunteer without really knowing what we're volunteering to. When we fill out applications, when we fill out other people's documents and contracts, that comes along with implied authority from the person that printed the paper and that owns the document. And much of the driver's license situation and the tax situation is really regulated by that authority that we give away. And that's what you've been talking about, for the last 2 weeks.
Okay, so the Did You Know document that's in the Constitution room. Did you know PDF?
That 25 or 30, it's 21 different items I've downloaded that too.
Okay, so your marriage license, your business license. Did you know that you have a right of common enterprise or right of free right of enterprise?
No.
So let's say you're a seamstress or a carpenter or a machinist, something of general use and right. Did you know that when you get a business license, whether it be an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, B Corp, C Corp, or create a foundation, you're creating that entity under foreign law and giving away all of your energy to that entity under foreign law. We will teach you your common law right of free enterprise. So, here in Washington, we have gotten to the point where we're about to hold our American elections, not corporate elections, American elections. And anybody that is a registered voter will not be able to participate in the American election. Other states are in that position where they're building what is called the 4 pillars of their state assembly. These are the 4 functional operations that run your state. They provide your services. They provide oversight of your court system under the American public law. Wouldn't it be nice to participate in some of this stuff for a change? What many people are waking up to is that as a registered voter, You're just participating in a straw poll, an opinion piece, and the real president of that corporation is done from the Electoral College, not from the popular vote. This is why sometimes through history, the popular vote is not what carried the office holder. And people stood back and scratched their head going, what happened?
Are you suggesting that we hold dual citizenship?
No.
Okay. Can you explain that? Because many of us are registered voters in in that straw poll. And are we going to be alienated from not voting or expressing our opinion about those candidates if we essentially exert our authority and reclaim our natural citizenship?
Okay, so once you reclaim your natural citizenship, why would you give them the authority to tax you? Why would you participate in a foreign corporate entity and give your birthright away?
Well, personally, I don't want to, but presently I'm not extracted myself from what is considered the system. And that's what I said. Do I hold a dual citizenship? Because I know all these other things. I'm beginning to do the work to claim my name, but yet I still have the right to vote in that straw poll.
Well, so in the landscape, there are different types of assemblies. There's the district assembly, where a dual citizenship exists that allows you to vote inside that corporate realm. And then there are municipal assemblies for the municipal federal citizenry. But neither of those function from the American standpoint. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
And when you vote in the corporate elections, you are ineligible to vote in the American one.
Okay. So those 32 million people that you spoke of earlier, they're not, I suppose those were all U.S. People in the United States body of land, but they're not participating in the straw poll.
Correct. Now, over time, this process of reclaiming yourself has been streamlined, especially with the bankruptcy of the municipal corporation. What was once a very convoluted and complicated process has been streamlined to the one-page declaration, the 2 witness testimonies, bringing forth a scanned copy of your birth certificate, and then making a declaration to function either as an American national, or if you wish to step up and serve your state government and be part of the solution, you can step up into the role of an American state citizen. Now, the American state citizen is the kind of character that created the Confederation of States, one of our federal contractors in D.C. And out of that body, after going through an elaborate process, you could step into a performing member of the Federal Republic. But because those 2 institutions can only be rebuilt from the American side of it, we have told our contractors and notified the rest of the world we may never rebuild those two institutions. Because inherently, from 1776 to 1781, the Federation of States represented the 13 states in international affairs globally. It has the capacity, the provenance, and the ability to do such today. That was one of our built-in safeguards. Kind of a fallback position.
Do you know how far advanced Wisconsin and Colorado are as far as this goes?
I've only had one discussion with a Wisconsinite. Anna's from Wisconsin. She makes reference to it in some of her dealings and examples.
Okay.
But I have not had a conversation with anybody from Colorado in the Colorado Assembly. Here in the next 6 or 8 weeks, I will probably be having lots of discussions with lots of folks. Because I'm one of three.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm one of 3 people running for a certain position here in Washington.
Now, when you say Anna, is that Anna von Reitz or is that somebody else?
Yeah, Anna von Reitz is the financial fiduciary for all of America, by the way. Okay. And she's also acting as the financial fiduciary for over 200 international countries. So when people give her a lot of lip service, they really don't know and don't recognize where she fits in this whole thing. She's been able to stuff all of our claims down the throats of the King of England, the Emperor of Great Britain, the King of Scotland, down the Vatican, down the Roman Curie, and a whole slew of others throughout Europe. Because we have the declaration and provenance and the first point of claim of trespass from any country. Our inherent claim comes from a fraudulently negotiated Treaty of Peace of 1783. And why do I say fraudulent? Because she foreclosed on the royal crowns because Queen Anne, Queen of Scotland, Queen of England, Queen, stepped off the royal throne in 1707. And the royal throne has been vacant for 3 centuries. So in 3 centuries' time, there's been a lot of signatures put on a lot of European documents, and they're all void.
I was like I say, wow.
So we foreclosed on the King of Scotland, notified the Archbishop of Canterbury that the crown was empty. The Lord High Steward, who lived in Australia, was given notification that he had a royal duty to do. We foreclosed on the Emperor of Great Britain. Great Britain is nothing more than a business entity whose crown was granted by virtue of the Vatican. That was Charles. So he was subject to kissing Vatican booty as a vassal. Don't be surprised if you start seeing bars on the English Union Jack flag start coming off in subsequent years. We have foreclosed on the World Bank, IMF, and the Bank for International Settlements. And why was that? Because back in the 1930s under FDR, when he confiscated our grandparents' gold, he gave 6,000 tons of that gold to the Federal Reserve, and the rest went to those other entities. We paid for it, we financed it, we own it. All those institutions have been ordered for audit. Now, I used to work for a major airline manufacturing company here in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm used to using decimal places, and I traditionally worked to the fourth placeholder to the right of the decimal. So numbers aren't anything that bother me. But when I see a number with 26 commas in it to the left of the decimal, and that's like one of thousands of accounts, there's lots of money to be had, folks. We've been subject to scarcity as a mindset. Get ready to have that veil ripped and go into absolute abundance mode. Because the banking system is getting overhauled into a prosperity system. Back in our ancestors, during the time of Lincoln, there were insurance bonds taken out on everybody. We're going into the seventh generation of bond insurance policies and derivatives and all kinds of stuff. It's all being captured and drugged back.
Can it happen soon enough to make a difference in most of our lives?
Well, let's put it this way. You're going to eventually learn about the Global Family Group and the Global Family Bank. The American Federation chartered the American States and Nations Trade Bank. 160 years ago, they were quite plentiful, but the European bankers came in and started buying them up, and they started closing and disappearing. And it only left international commercial banks in the sea jurisdiction in the landscape. Here shortly, the rug is going to be pulled out from underneath all the banks that are not Basel III compliant. Don't be surprised. Now, the American States and Nations Trade Bank, whose acronym is the ASAN Bank, is the only chartered bank that's Basel IV compliant right now. because we have reissued the American Federated Dollar, and it's based on a quantity of gold. And the last time I checked, the exchange rate was 234 Federal Reserve notes to 1 American Federated Dollar, whose acronym is the AFD. $234 to 1. That is how hyperinflated the Federal Reserve System was. They literally chained the monkey to the printing press and just cranked those puppies out. So your birth certificate is printed on bond paper. That bond was sold on Wall Street into a hedge fund. Your social security number was also sold on Wall Street. And I used to be able to take people in and show them the existence of their account. But so many people woke up to the website and traffic was so gross, they reconfigured the American website. I can no longer get in there and show people. However, there is a website that you can look up your driver's license bond. Yes, your driver's license has a bond on it. And here in Washington, we discovered it's worth $5,000. So I'm going to type in okay, I just put a website in called treasurydirect.gov. It's in the Constitution channel. You'll go to this website and you're going to be looking for how to ascertain the value of a Series E or Series EE savings bond. And you're going to treat your driver's license number just like it is a savings bond. When you get into this proper site, it'll come up with columns that say ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. You're going to have to pull the totals from each of these and then total them up, and you'll see what your driver's license has for bonding behind it. I offer you this as proof of much of what I've told and shared with you. Don't be surprised if the stock market goes down. With the correction of derivatives and a whole slew of other Wall Street items. If any of you have a 401k, I would highly encourage you to run to the exits. Do not walk. Move your 401k and your Roth into a metals program. I myself do not hold anything in the stock market. No stocks, no bonds, no derivatives. I believe if you cannot hold it, you don't own it. Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brenda, and I just wanted to ask a quick question because of obligations I have to get back to as I'm caregiving for someone. And that is, Will this be is it recorded, and can I listen to it again?
Yes.
Okay. Where would I access it? Is it just at the top of the menu of the Constitution Room?
I'm hoping it will be in the Constitution Room. It will also be on the YouTube channel called Seeds of Wisdom Team Currency Facts.
Okay, Currency Facts. Okay, got it. I'm part of the Seed of Wisdom team for a long time.
Okay. Yeah,
And
good.
okay, I never stop to ask questions because if I listen long enough, all of those questions are answered. Thank you, Jim, for such thorough information that you give. Much of it I already knew, but you did trigger some things that I knew in the back of my mind, but didn't remember. And then there are a few other things that it's like, wow, I didn't know that. So thank you. And I'm going to exit and leave you to get back to what you're doing. That's so important. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hey,
Bye.
Brenda, bless
Yes.
you for being a caregiver.
Oh, thank you. It's hard. It's hard work. And, it is what it is. And I am a caregiver for someone I've known for about 37, 38 years. He has no one else. He's almost 90 years old. And because I know what I know, they could have killed him in the hospital at the beginning of the year. Just don't trust your medical practitioners. I stopped short of actually legitimizing them on any level. I got in a fight with a lot of doctors. I always won. But this was an infection, a simple infection that he had that dated back to the summer of last year. And because it was not handled properly by his primary care physician, he ended up in ICU with kidney failure. And he's turning 90 in October. And so at this point, we beat them at their own game, playing by their own rules and firing their stupid asses. So anyway, I'm a warrior, and I appreciate every last one of you who are also warriors. I just want you to know that. Have a good evening.
Bravo, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope to catch up again. This is the first one I've actually been able to sit in and listen to because I'm usually very busy during these hours. I'm on the West Coast, I'm in lost wages of the country, Nevada. And yeah, I don't gamble. I've been in the entertainment business. I watched everybody else go down the toilet really fast. I don't do that. So anyway, you guys have a great evening. I hope to catch up with you again live someday.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
So, anybody else have any questions?
Low Tide had some things he wanted you to discuss tonight.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still here.
Yeah, I'm still here, and
go ahead and ask.
He pretty well covered the Anna question about who she is and what part she's playing. That was a really good answer. And the other one was I wanted you to talk about you talked about it last week, but can you expand on the federal income tax? That whole question. And people are asking me, why do we pay it if we're not federal employees?
Number one, people volunteered. Number two, under threat and duress, intimidation from the Instant Robbery Service. Unbeknownst to most people, one of the hats or titles that have been laid upon you is as of a Puerto Rican transmitting utility as a runaway Puerto Rican. There's something called the individual master file. Every last one of you have one. So when I obtained mine, I had mine decoded. What they told me shocked me. So I worked for this rather large company. I worked for them for 35 years. And during that time, I had a up close and personal invitation from the Instant Robbery Service. And they took my entire paycheck. They were kind enough to pay my child support or allow it to be paid, and left me with something like $260 a month to live on. So when I heard about this file, I found out how to get it. I had it decoded. And then what they told me was that I was under Title 27 Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Regulation. And that is the only true taxation under Title 27. However, do you do any of it? Do you run a distillery? Are you a commercial drug dealer from like Pfizer, Pharmaceutical, Merck, Johnson & Johnson? Do you run around as a representative on their behalf? Do you distribute firearms? Are you an arms dealer? Well, if you say no to any of this stuff, then why are you subjecting yourself voluntarily? Again, at birth, they have put many hats upon us. One of them is, in some cases of us, it is a warrant officer in the Queen of England's Merchant Mariner Service. In a private capacity, they would be known as the ship's purser. Let's say you worked on the Love Boat and you pulled into port. You would be paying port fees, buying provisions for the ship, maybe even paying wages, whatever. That is what the purser does. Well, in the merchant service, that's what the warrant officer does. So you're a tax collector in this capacity. You handle money. You transmit funds through commercial paper. And this is why they put you into the capacity of a private banker using commercial paper. And they treat you as a professional because you utilize commercial paper almost on a daily basis, but don't recognize it as commercial paper. How many of you have a checking account? Commercial paper. How many of you have a driver's license? As the authorized representative of the business entity, I would recommend that you examine your so-called signature line carefully with extreme magnification. Find out it says authorized representative, authorized representative, authorized representative in continuous micro print. So you have various types of names that have been created behind your back. And one of the goals when you come home is you want to lay claim to them and drag them into shore. Get them off the high seas of commerce. Treat them like tennis shoes. Adidas, Nike, Skechers. And for you ladies, let's add a little intrigue and spice. Gucci! Well, when you drag everything back to the land and soil, no one gets free ride by walking in your shoes. And if they want to walk in your shoes, they're going to have to pay you handsomely. We will teach you what that means and how to handle those affairs. So we do a deed of reconveyance, drag all these names back to the shore. So I'm going to pick on one of you, and I'm going to pick on Lindy. I was just scanning the newspapers, and I found this really sweet ride of a sailboat. However, she's in Puerto Rico. She's 40 feet, 2 sails, seaworthy, open ocean going. And I really want to go look at this boat. So I get on an airplane, go to Puerto Rico, walk around, inspect the Lindy, and I buy the Lindy. I pay for her, and I bring her up through the Caribbean, take her through the Panama Canal, bring her into the Pacific, bring her up onto the West Coast. And by the time I get up here on the West Coast, here in Washington, it's at the end of October and the prime sailing season's gone. So I look for 40 feet of moorage and I get told what it's going to cost me. And I go, holy heck, I'm going to take this sailboat out of the water. I'm going to dry dock it. I'm not paying moorage fees. And that's what we do with the various kinds of names. So, Lindy, your last name is Smith for this example. There's the Lindy Smith in upper lowercase. There's the Lindy Smith in all caps. There's the Lindy with a capital L, little letters, and a middle initial. There's the Lindy Smith with a middle initial and a period behind it. And then there's all cap version of what I just described. Taking control, bringing all this to the land and treating them like tennis shoes. And one of them happens to be a really classy pair of high heels made by Gucci for those special occasions out. And if anybody wants to stand in your shoes because you've reclaimed them and you put them under copyright, they are your property, by the way, they're going to have to pay you handsomely. Every last one of you will be doing this exercise when you come home. Now, for you ladies, some of you who have been married a time or two, or those of you who have been adopted, every style of name that you've ever been known by, you're going to have to do this process to. And it's a fun exercise to go back after our bad performing employees and go, not so fast. You didn't ask for permission. So stick your hand out. Bad employee. We will teach you how to do this. So when it comes to the taxes, once you've gone through a certain number of processes, you're in a position to issue a letter to the Internal Revenue Service and the IRS saying, you have canceled your voluntary donation, and I make it retroactive for the last 10 years. And don't expect to accept anything from me going forward. Now, think about being able to adjust your W-4 holding and take that part of withholding and put it back into your right pocket to improve your everyday living circumstance. You will be able to do it lawfully.
Praise the Lord.
Again, come out of her, my people, and partake not of her plagues. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. You have signs and symbols all around you, to which every last one of us have just shrugged our shoulders because we see it daily in the background. But by symbology, they mean many things to us. So up in the Constitution room, I posted something about flags and the items that you might see at the top of a flag. I would recommend that you download it and study it a little bit. When you go into a courtroom and you see what looks like the American flag and it has a gold fringe around it, it is a symbol for something. It means something. And that little birdie at the top, whether its wings are up or whether its wings are down, whether it's facing the left or facing the right, means something. And if it's a round globe at the top, that means something. And the proportions of said flag mean something. America has two flags, by the way. A peacetime flag and a wartime flag. And all of us have grown up only recognizing and knowing the wartime flag. The peacetime flag, the red and white stripes are vertical, meaning the actual government is standing. When they're horizontal, the government is struck or it's being represented by something. And where the blue field and white stars exist, it's a white field with blue stars in the peacetime flag. Don't be surprised here shortly if we see a flag change out being directly ordered and in everybody's face. Okay. Another question. Anybody else got a question? Low Tide, do you have any more?
Well, I can always come up with more, but thank you so much. Can you do you have anything to say about the the next few weeks and what to expect and how it could be related to what we're seeing on the major city streets with the National Guard being deployed?
Okay. The company known as United States in all caps was put into bankruptcy proceedings May 4th of 2020 in Tallahassee District Bankruptcy Court. The president and CEO of that corporation was one Donald John Trump. Before the president and CEO of said company did that, he signed various executive orders for a joint global military operation because said company was being utilized to subjugate the planet. The 2016 election was actually a military sting operation to expose this corporate takeover and international interference by many of the global community that had said they were our friends and bosom buddies. So military intelligence stood back and monitored the whole process. Gathered the information. And when Donald was elected as president, he came into control of the National Security Agency. And under Obama had weaponized anything and everything imaginable to be used against us. But because we had certain legislation on the books, he, as president of the company, could not internally surveil the domestic population. So he had to go outside and say, hey, would you do me a favor? Would you look inside America and monitor the American people? And I'll monitor yours for you. This was called the Five Eyes Project. Well, the Five Eyes Project has been taken down. But all the information that has been gathered on each and every one of them, everywhere, Donald now had control of. And since the cabal had gathered this to control us, they were able to turn the table and utilize this information and take it to the cabal. Take it to their doorstep. Hi, look what we have. This is Donald's capitulation tour. Looky here. We all have the same problem, folks. Wouldn't you like to get rid of your problem? I'll help you get rid of your problem if you help me get rid of mine. So if you've seen video of the royal sword dance, now you have a context of what happened. Everybody had the problem. China, Korea, South America. No one was exempt from the problem. So a 30-plus international consortium was built to go after the problem. Human trafficking, drugs, armaments, you name it. However, most of you have heard the term GDP. How about the global product analysis. The main product that runs planet Earth, the number one dollar, yen, ruble, peso generating item was something called adrenochrome. Here in America, we have over 800,000 missing children a year. And since they opened up the borders, they've had over 320,000 missing children who have come across the borders, and they can't find hide nor hair of them. This is the main problem that's systemic across every culture, every tongue on planet Earth. Your problem is my problem. So if you're willing to give me a helping hand, I will give you a helping hand. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Since we all have this mutual enemy, hi brother, hi sister. So right now I'm aware of about 700,000 sealed indictments. They're getting ready to rip the top off and kick ass. When this happens, the flushing will be 3 times because it's a long way to hell. The corrupt will be removed from our midst. Those that sold their souls will come across something like Epstein's list, footage compromised, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, being encouraged to do the bad stuff. We may go through a time where I'm getting indications there may be a 10-day period where your cell phone goes down, your TV gets overtaken. The only thing you'll see on the internet, if it's up, will be emergency broadcast programming that will go through 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for maybe up to 10 days, and it will be a repeat action. Everyone needs to mentally prepare for getting their nose rubbed in the carpet. Think of yourself as a puppy, getting your nose rubbed in it. For those of you that know about some of this stuff, it won't be a shock. But for a certain part of the population that refuses to open up their eyes, if it ain't on TV, I don't believe in it. And oh my God, what are they telling me? There will be people that will have an absolute emotional meltdown if what I'm aware of comes to pass. There is a certain laptop that's being made referenced, the likes of which 9 of a dozen people who have seen it puked their guts out over. And these are seasoned, hardened, emotionally well-retained law enforcement folks. That's how horrendous some of this information that may come to light will be. And then people are going to find out that they worked in a certain organization just doing their job. And then they find out that the actual function of the organization did what? All I was doing was a paper pusher, but I participated in this. Oh my God. And it's going to be gut-wrenching, folks. But when we get through the other side and we cross the Rubicon, you are going to be living in a brand new world. We as Americans are owed so much. And the claims have been brought forth, and that those that owe these obligations to us can never sufficiently repay. So there's going to be a lot of debt forgiveness for something that gets categorized as odious debt. Now, in the Bible, they talk about a grand jubilee every 50 years or so. That jubilee has not been done in 800 years. Think of the extent of the forgiveness of debt that's going to occur. And in the things are going to be made right. Odious debt is going to be vaporized. All kinds of forgiveness is going to be extended to those that will accept the offer. However, only the American people can extend that offer of forgiveness. Because of something called the Clarefield Doctrine, when Abe Lincoln and his cronies brought in this corporation, the so-called government descended to corporate status and all of its subsidiary franchises. And corporations cannot grant corporations forgiveness. And the officers of said corporations have no ability to grant each other immunity because corporations lack sovereign immunity. Everybody in your local courthouse is not functioning as an American. They're acting as corporate officers of a franchise called the State of, which is a franchise of the United States, which Donald was the president and CEO of. And the whole operation is being flushed. So let me put it into a contextual relationship that you can relate to this. If you watch the 2016 election, the military comes out of the grandstand, and then Donald comes through. And he declares that this was unlike any other election. We, indicating the military, because at that time, he's wearing multiple hats. And one of the hats that Donald is wearing is called the Commander-in-Chief. We are handing back the power to you, we the people. Now let me put that in a different context of who we the people are. We the people, with a capital P on people, are the American state citizens who stepped up into the Confederation of States, crafting the Constitution for the United States of America, creating the contracts to the British King, known as the Constitutional of the United States. Those are the American state citizens of each state of the Union who have stepped forward in this capacity. I happen to be one of those we the people. I am a declared American state citizen. And because my ancestry is documented all the way back to 1760 Maryland, and my ancestor was part of the North Carolina Congress or Assembly of the time, I have the historical provenance to exercise this. I do possess the authority to put my foot where the sun doesn't shine to our employees. And there are many like me across the country. This is why we are having the discussion to revoke the Residency Act of 1790. And I do believe we're going to revoke it. And when we revoke it, some 23 million people will be eligible for deportation, either to England or to Canada. And there's not a freaking word that they have about it. They have declared war against the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Guarantees, which they recognize as the Bill of Rights. By way of a fraud that was set up. And they even went so far as to talk to the Vatican about it back in the day of the 1800s. Look up something called the Treaty of Verona. The Vatican of the time accepted and gave blessing to the fraud that we are now living through. This fraud was so massive, it was done not only to the English and the Scots and the Irish and the Welsh. It was done to us, and then it was extended to every Commonwealth country like Australia and New Zealand and across Africa, and taken into India. That's why I say it's a common problem everywhere. And the key agent in the middle of all of this is someone called an attorney. However, at this time, we know now they don't even know all the details, because at the very highest echelons, and maybe the Privy Council of Great Britain, they know. So with the National Guard on our streets, supposedly sometime here very shortly, the corporation is going to officially be announced as having ended. And it's going to cause certain pandemoniums. To the unaware. But through the WEF, groups like the Bilderbergs, the Committee of 300, we have been infiltrated by all kinds of folks. And most of it has no good intent with America. This is why the National Guard have been called out. I suspect for a better part of the last 4 years, they have been distributed across America in, say, 350, 60 cities, to embed themselves in the community. So when the appointed time happened, all they had to do is put on their gear and walk out of the front door of wherever they were at. They could be at your neighborhood hardware store. They could be selling shoes. Ta-da, we're here. I have personally, in my own time with another friend of mine, found such an embedded character. And we lightly danced around certain subjects and got a feel for each other. And this is how I know that for the better part of 4 years, this program has been going on. So don't be surprised if your cell phone gets shut down, the internet goes down. You might even get the power to go down for a short time. And this will be an absolute time for these characters to get their orders to go pick up the corrupt characters, the embedded nasties everywhere. So cooperate. And I do hope you have the ability to stock up a little bit, because on the economics, this economic changeover can go kind of smoothly with a couple of hiccups here and there, or it can be devastatingly bad for everyone everywhere. And we're seeking cooperation. But here shortly, the East Coast longshoremen are going to go on strike. I don't know how many of you have paid attention to the trucking industry. But my son works in warehousing, and I kind of have a good feel for it. Look in the newspapers under bankruptcies, and you're going to find major trucking firms going out of business. I would recommend, if you have the ability for 3 to 4 weeks, examine what you have. And stock up if you can. And when you do see the National Guard out on the street, be friendly, be polite. Get an idea that they're actually here to help us transition through a time. I myself do not expect a normal election cycle in November. But I do expect a whole bunch of false flags, disruptions, anything to delay, to justify changes of protocol. Just realize that the old guard, those in control of the old way of doing things, do not want to let go of their grip. So at this point, yes, Low Tide?
Well, I was just going to thank you so much for the time you've spent with us. And I would just share that I have found nothing to dispute anything that you shared and told us. I've been spending a lot of time trying, but I can't find anything to dispute and contradict anything that you've shared. And it actually reaffirms stuff that many of us have heard from talking gurus, and it expands and goes beyond the knowledge that they were sharing or have shared, but it puts it in clarity and puts responsibility upon us to do something. We have things that we need to do, and we just can't be spectators in the reclamation of our nation. And that there may only be 10 people here at the moment, or 11 people. Several people have come and gone, but be excited for the future, and that we are within probably a short period of time. And when I say that, I'm like before the end of the year, that we are going to see some major changes and events that are going to unfold, and we're seeing them right now. And I hold out my prayerful heart that the things that we're seeing are not just house cleaning, where people that are being exposed, and I guess the light is coming into their life. It's not going to be swept under the rug, and that there is actually going to be prosecution, not persecution, of good people. The prosecution will be for evildoers, and that we've been awash in that for all our lives. We don't know what we don't know. And I just want to tell you thank you. It's been an enlightening experience for me, that I got to meet you and got introduced to you about, I don't know, 4 weeks ago. And I thank you. I can't tell you thank you enough.
No, thank you. But I just reposted Ex parte Milligan. For those of you who have not heard of this, you're going to hear about it very shortly. It's quoted in the law as 71 U.S. 2. It's an 1866 court case. All of our lives, we have been run through admiralty courts, treated on the sea as merchant services, sailors. And in 1866, during the Civil War, this guy was in Indiana, and he was aligned with a group way down south. They found out about him, and they sought him out to arrest him and then take him to a military tribunal, and the tribunal sentenced him to be executed. Well, he said, you don't have authority to do this. As long as there's a lawful civilian court nearby, you can't drag a civilian before a military tribunal. Well, this Milligan ex parte notification pertains to a lawful civilian court after the American civilian public law has been redefined or redeclared. So we've been subjected to foreign law by the attorneys. They were put on fraud and treason notice December 23rd of 2022. In late March of 2023, a proclamation of possession by right was issued in the revocation of all the contracts, and the common law was reproclaimed across America. If you've ever watched Ponderosa or any of those old Wild West movies,
Yep.
the law from that time period has been reinvoked across the country. In each state of the union, the state assembly is reissuing this Milligan ex parte notice. This notice goes to all branches of the military, the Pentagon, and even Donald got served at Mar-a-Lago. I am the co-author of Washington's ex parte notice. I posted the ex parte notice up in the Constitution Room. I do believe. If you find it up there and download it, print it out. Save it to your computer, because each of the states is going to be issuing their version of this notice, re-implementing American common law under the Judiciary Act of 1789. There's language there called for the operation of superior co-contemporaneous jurisdictional courts. These are the courts of common law. American common law is rather draconian, but it's very simple. Right now, in the de facto corporate realm, there's over 80 million codes, statutes, and regulation. Our actual law is inherent in the congressional record, and so far, post-Civil War, we Americans have actually enacted like 4 pieces of law. And one of them is we gave notice that we're coming after our ill-performing and bad-performing employees. And the reason we're able to do this is we took our gripes and complaints to the ultimate overseer of all corporations. And he sided with us in our list of complaints. So in 2013, he issued a worldwide instrument called a motu proprio, telling the globe's corporate structure to get their operations back in line with their original charters. Get your operation back inside the cat box because it stinks. And if I have to come back and chastise you, if I have to, I will liquidate you. He issued the final one in 2027 or 2017. And in 2017, he said this motu proprio was absolute and final. He handed over the jurisdiction to the people of the world in their respective jurisdictions. So here in America, we're giving notice to everyone to conform to the American public law and the prudent man standard. Under the prudent man standard, it's a higher level and expectation of performance. We, the Assembly of the States, have the authority to liquidate and request the liquidation of any business created under foreign law, be it an LLC, C Corp, S Corp, D Corp, or a foundation. We are going to clean this June joint up. And when I talk to my equals from some of the other states, we are seemingly in mutual alignment. We don't care what institution of higher education, be it Princeton, Yale, Purdue, Pepperdine, or the University of Washington. If they have a law school and they are teaching civil law, their university charters are subject to liquidation if they don't correct their teachings. This will come as a shock to many alumni. Here in Washington, we've already given notice to Microsoft, to the 3 branches of the company. This is why you're going to see major corporate bankruptcies across the board. You've already seen Macy's, Bed Bath & Beyond, and other big box stores go into bankruptcy. Well, last Monday, BlackRock went into bankruptcy. BlackRock, of all institutions. We're keeping an eye on Vanguard, and we're keeping an eye on State Street. I was notified last January that the Big 12 banks were given an ultimatum. Conform under the public law or be subject to liquidation. 4 banks chose to stay in the international sea jurisdiction, and 4 banks accepted the conversion. I believe it was January 14th that the credit card processors were informed by the big banks. After a certain date, we no longer need your services. Your services won't be needed after January 14th. That's what that was. So don't be surprised if you see new credit card agreements come out, new services from the banks. Like I said, they have a short time to be Basel III compliant. And back in the day, Abraham Lincoln put the military in oversight of our money. And they put the military in oversight of the Bar Association. Since then, I found out that there's the International Bar, the U.S. Bar, the American Bar, and the American Inns of Court here on our shore. All staffed by attorneys. This is why the landscape is so convoluted, so messed up. Attorneys. And I have a joke for you. I'm going to lighten up everything. If it weren't for attorneys, we'd have no need for lawyers. I'm going to get back to this ex parte Milligan notice. When you find it, download it. Go to page 3. Look for the second signature on it, on that page. Look under the signature line. So it's a little after 8 o'clock. Anybody else have any more questions?
I just want to thank you for having these sessions.
Well, invite your friends and family, those that are willing to listen to you. Those of us at this stage of the game are undoubtedly looked by friends and family as nut jobs and fruitcakes.
Absolutely.
And so I'm very proud to wear my tinfoil hat. And I am self-confessed. I'm a man that has rocks in my head. I'm a rock collector. And I make that self-confession. I have rocks in my head. So I think it's time to wrap it up. Those of you on the East Coast have been here and for a while, and it's now 11:07 out there. I thank you for hanging in here.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here, and Jim, with all your information. You're just a wealth of, you're a walking encyclopedia, even if you do have rocks in your head. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll see you back next Friday. I'll put the call up on YouTube, so the replay will be there, and we've gotten really, really good responses from the replay. So share it with your friends and come in this room and you can ask your questions and reach out to us, and we're here to help. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
Be safe, everyone. Have a good week. Smile. By the way, you live in a new country. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jim. Yep. Thank you. Good night.